Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Canon Business Process Services 30-minute webcast, The Road to High-Performance Accounts Payable. We're very excited to have you all on board, and we appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedules to join us. My name is Anne-Marie Cochia, Director of Marketing at Canon Business Process Services, and I'll be your moderator for today's webcast. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce our esteemed panelist for today, Ted Ardelian, who is the Director of R&D here at Canon Business Process Services. Ted has over 25 years' experience working with clients on improving their business processes. He's presented and written articles on a wide range of business process outsourcing topics. He has a great level of expertise in achieving accounts payable goals and improving business processes for clients. Ted, thank you so much for joining us today. We're so glad to have you on board.
Thank you, Anne-Marie, and welcome everyone. Based on the number of people that registered and their titles and companies, there seems to be a good amount of interest in high-performance AP among managers and executives. As a service provider managing accounts payable for other companies, AP performance is important to us as well. That's why today we wanted to talk about the AP performance and how to reach that high-performance operating level we all want. Early this year, we released a white paper titled High-Performance AP 3 Drivers. We wrote the paper based on our experience and research that we did earlier this year with Ardent Partners, a consulting firm specializing in the procure-to-pay and AP consulting area. So the data that we're sharing with you today is coming from that white paper. But first, for the people who may not be familiar with who Canon Business Process Services is and what we do, please let me allow to just say a word about our business. We are a division of Canon, and our services primarily focused in the BPO, document process outsourcing, office services, and e-discovery, as you see on the screen. One of our BPO services is accounts payable outsourcing. However, we provide BPO services in other areas such as student financial aid or claims processing and insurance and so on. We have about 5,000 people in the U.S. We deliver our services primarily on-site through client facilities and our people, but also off-site through our processing centers in the U.S. and offshore. We use Six Sigma as our process excellence methodology, and we have been recognized by the IAOP as one of the global 100 leaders in BPO over the past 7 years. So with that, let's move on to review the challenges in AP first and define what we mean by high-performance AP. The number one problem AP departments face is getting the invoices into the ERP and workflow systems. Still, approximately 80% of the invoices that are coming through are in the paper format or what we call paper equivalent format, meaning that the invoice comes in as a PDF or a spreadsheet attachment to an email, and then it requires conversion manually. The numbers on this slide represent data from our current current survey that we are just completing right now, and we will be releasing that survey probably in October at the IOFM conference. But basically 80% of AP departments still do not have the invoice receipt to ERP activity automated. To eliminate that manual data entry and the paper, email attached invoices is no automation for the AP department because the invoices still need to be entered into the ERP or converted into the ERP formatted data, and that takes time. Looking at the approval and discrepancy resolution workflow, only 21% of AP departments report using some sort of automation, collecting approvals, coding discrepancies, collecting approvals, as I should say, coding the invoice, resolving discrepancies, is mostly manual. The admin work or the admin support work in AP, like supply inquiries, analysis, reporting, vendor maintenance, is also pretty much manual and time-consuming. The other challenge in AP is visibility. AP managers do not have the detail-level data that they need to properly measure and manage the AP process. So that presents problems in managing workflow and so on. Finally, implementing change in AP is also a challenge for executives. AP managers and AP executives or finance executives are running full speed every day, trying to pay the invoices, pay them on time, resolve issues, and smooth out the process. But there's really no time to implement change, to go out, look for technology, implement technology, and then manage all of that ongoing. So with that background, what do we mean by high-performance AP? We define high-performance AP as the AP department that operates within the 20% of the best-in-class performance level. And on this slide, you are looking at the data from our research that we released earlier this year, which basically shows the average AP performance versus best-in-class overall from the research data that we have. And as you can see, there's a big difference between the best-in-class and the average performance across the board. There is clear advantage that the high-performance AP function has. If you look at cost, invoice cycle time, invoices processed per FTE per month, and so on, all the numbers indicate that there is great advantage, and therefore there is motivation and reason to work hard to increase performance to the highest level one possibly can. So no doubt there are challenges facing the AP department. The good news is that those challenges can be overcome. There are solutions to help advance any AP department from where they are to a high performance level. So what is that roadmap that takes you to a high performance AP? Here at Canon, we believe we have a best practice approach for that, and that is based on our experience working with many clients across various industries and different sizes of AP departments and different levels of efficiencies and challenges that each one face. We define the roadmap as in 3 steps, and the first one being centralize the receipt and digitize the invoice, and at the same time pay attention to increasing and maximizing the use of e-invoices as much as possible at the front end of the process. The second step being optimize the process and the cost to the greatest extent possible given the first step implemented and the systems and technologies that are existing or are in use today. And the third step is automate the rest of the process, the processing and the back end of AP as much as possible, either with supplemented technology or additional technology and workflows, or with existing technologies and workflows. Looking at the centralized and digitized phase, we think that an AP department can gain about 50% of the cost and performance improvement from this overall process by implementing or by centralizing the receipt of all invoices, paper and digital, digitizing them using automation to eliminate manual data entry, and as I said before, pay attention and maximize the use of e-invoices through networks and EDI, data exchanges, TO flips, and all kinds of such methods. The benefits obviously include putting the AP in control over the entire AP process or invoice process, because the invoices will be coming into the hands of AP, and from the moment they arrive, within hours or within at least 24 hours, you are working on the invoice and resolving discrepancies and so on, and therefore you gain that time. You need to be ready to pay that invoice when you want to, not necessarily when it's due. The other benefit here is obviously the paper goes out of the process, and that is a huge benefit because you're working with electronic invoices or digital invoices, images of invoices. You have eliminated the manual data entry, which is about 75% of the total time spent in AP processing, where people are constantly looking at the invoice, comparing data, matching data, and so on. And of course, there are other benefits such as paperless audits, increased responsiveness, being able to respond to a vendor inquiry in seconds instead of minutes. So when we did this white paper in our research earlier this year, there were 3 questions we asked. One was, do AP departments with centralized invoice receipt perform better than those with decentralized invoice receipt? And the data shown on this table shows that there is a marked increase in performance. And this gives you an idea as to what kind of increase in performance you can expect just from implementing this step. The biggest one being the number of invoices being processed straight through, and that's probably because you are working with electronic invoices, or I should say electronic data, that you could put through the ERP workflow and so on if you have the ERP workflow. The other benefit is the cycle time increased from, or cycle time decreased from 14 days to roughly 8 days, a 4-day or a 6-day improvement in the process, which is significant. So the challenges, obviously, in implementing the second step include overcoming low productivity, overcoming backlog. Most organizations deal with backlog, chronic backlog month to month, and poor or no controls in the process. The solution, obviously, is to benchmark the process, map the workflow, and leverage shared service centers, internal or outsourced, as much as possible. The benefits from optimizing the process include higher performance and higher productivity, and being able to be more flexible in terms of how you manage the AP process, being able to have the flexibility to process invoices on site if you wanted to, off-site or offshore in processing centers that you may not have available to you.
Ted, I see that we have a question come in here. The question is, what is the minimum monthly invoice volume that is suitable for outsourcing?
Good question. I'm not sure that there is a minimum. When we look at the process, we look at the entire process and see where improvements can be made and how many invoices are being processed and how long it takes and so on, the level of automation. I would say that any number of invoices can be outsourced. It depends on what is the overall task to be completed holistically, as opposed to a tactical activity. Usually we look at the process from an overall point of view, from receipt to payment, and based on that we then present to the customer the overall benefit and improvement, and that really depends on, looking at what kind of savings, what kind of performance level can be gained, and they can conclude based on that whether or not they want to outsource or not. Moving on to the next slide in the presentation, and this slide talks about the improvement that can be realized perhaps from optimizing the process. And the question that we asked in the survey was, do AP departments that optimize processes perform better than those that don't optimize the AP process, as we talked about before? And as you can see, there is an advantage to optimizing the process using many various techniques such as shared service centers, mapping and understanding the workflow, improving the workflow, and so on. The cost per invoice can be improved roughly 25% or so. The invoices processed per FTE per month is a dramatic increase, and one reason we think that is driving this is the fact that if you outsource the AP process, you are implementing a process that is driven by metrics and measurements, which means that the service provider has to constantly focus on maintaining high productivity and meeting service level goals that are established in the contract, and that means that the process has to be streamlined, made as clean as possible, and the focus is on processing the invoice as fast as possible. Next step in our recommended methodology is automate the process as much as possible. I mentioned before, AP managers are busy with day-to-day activities, and there is no time to scope technology and implement technology. Scanning OCR data extraction is something that is not associated with the accounts payable function. It is a workflow process, document process, and you really need expertise to set that up and automate that and manage that. Again, that's not something that AP perhaps should do or wants to do. There are a number of solutions when it comes to automation. If you look at the process from intake to payment, in the intake phase, OCR, data capture and extraction, electronic document management, e-invoicing, supplier portal, pre-process validation workflow, these are all technology methods to help automate that process. In processing the approval and resolving discrepancies, there are special workflows. We call it workflow automation or invoice automation that drive the process and greatly reduce the time and the workload to get that approval and resolve the discrepancies, doing the matching, PO matching, and so on. On the back end, there are efficiencies in payment. Check payment, by the way, is still about 80% of the payment methods in business to business, according to recent studies this year. And then on the managing of the process, there are improvements through technology such as analytics and dashboards and reports, and workflow configurations that, again, save time and help drive the process faster. So the benefits from automation are significant. It gives you, the ability to process a certain portion of invoices straight through, gives you visibility into the process and therefore intelligence, and you are able to manage the process better.
Ted, I see that we have another write-in question from the audience. It reads, do we need to give up our own systems and technologies and use yours?
The short answer to that is no. That's a good question also. it is possible to work around the client technology that exists and supplement that with enhancements. And that's basically one way we present solutions to our customers, because we recognize that certain systems are there and they can't be changed, at least they can't be changed quickly. So rather than wait years until it's a good time to change or upgrade a system, we work around that. So for example, in the front end, we add OCR and so on, but we integrate that and we link to existing client systems so we can look up data, we can download data and match, and so on. In other areas, we may add a supplier portal if a client does not have one. If a client has procure-to-pay systems, we work with integrating the workflow with procure-to-pay systems. For example, clean up the data and push it into procure-to-pay systems so that the invoices practically pay themselves or go straight through the process through the procure-to-pay system. So there are many ways to work with the client technologies without asking the client to give up their technology and sign up or go on our own platform. Although we do have our own platform that provides the entire automation from receipt to ready-to-pay stage, and if that is something that the client needs or could use, for example, if they have multiple ERP systems and they want to standardize the entire workflow for all the ERP systems using an outside workflow that works outside the ERP, then that is one way to go, and perhaps that might be the good way to go if you're looking for time savings in implementation and you want a complete automated process across the board. So I hope I answered that question. The table that we have in front of us on the slide compares presents the advantage or the improvement based on using automation. So the question that we asked here was, do AP departments that use workflow automation perform better than those that do not? And the result or the answer from this study is that they do. There is a marked improvement in number of invoices processed per FTE per month. There is a marked improvement in the cost per invoice and, of course, in the cycle time. So with that, what is the road to implementing high-performance AP? And rather than give you some sort of a prescribed method, what we would like to do, or what I would like to do, is talk about this by using 3 client examples to illustrate what the situation was of the client at the time and what improvement we recommended and they implemented. So the first one is a global cosmetics leader, and the situation here, they already had a global workflow for AP. They were using shared service centers offshore in Asia. They had fully automated workflow. The problem was that in the U.S., they were receiving 16,000 invoices in paper, and they wanted those to be put into workflow, but they didn't want to set up their own scanning center and so on in the U.S. So we took on the challenge. We scanned the invoices, gave them indexed invoices as they wanted, and so on. The problem was that they still couldn't process the invoices through their workflow straight through because about 30% of the invoices could not be read efficiently in their OCR engine in the work which was inside their workflow, and therefore had problems. So what we did was we worked with them and said, well, why don't we extract that data and validate the data for you and give you only valid invoices that match your PO system, because they were fully on the PO system. And that did the trick. That increased the performance to about 99.5%, where basically about 0.5% of their invoices that come to us are rejected for some reason, and we basically bounce those back to the supplier with the reason for the rejection. The next client example is an international bank, diversified bank, and their situation was somewhat more complex. They had about they have about 18,000 invoices a month. About 10,000 of them are PO invoices, and 8,000 are non-PO invoices. The PO invoices are processed through Ariba, and the non-PO invoices are go into a manual process. They wanted to automate that manual process, but they also wanted to use Ariba so that all their invoices are in one database in one workflow. So the challenge there was getting the invoices into Ariba in a clean format. Another challenge was that about 40% of their invoices failed validation for some reason. The data was not clean, the data was missing. The suppliers were sending invoices that were pretty much a mess. And the automation, the front-end automation required that we validate those invoices, and a pre-processed workflow was implemented where basically we test those invoices against the client systems, and based on business rules, we identify those that can't pass validation, and we return them either to the buyers in this case or to the suppliers with the reasons as to why they are they're failing validation. The other part of the solution was connecting with Ariba and passing on to Ariba clean invoices, clean data, so that the invoices do not get or get trapped into some sort of a discrepancy in processing. The result is that for the first time in years, the client has passed their internal audit, and 85% of their invoices are reaching paid on time stage, which is something that they've never had before and that they were after getting. The third client example is a biopharmaceutical company, and here they're receiving about 15,000 invoices a month. They did implement front-end scanning to Oracle ERP, and they were estimating their cost at about $20 per invoice. Problem was low on-time payment. Only about 40% of invoices made it to payment on time, and that was a huge problem for them because it affected their purchasing of raw materials that went into drug manufacturing, and that was a big problem for them. The solution was we've benchmarked the process, we mapped the process, we troubleshooted the scanning issues and data extraction. They've outsourced the front-end imaging to us, and we've implemented OCR and are extracting the data from all the invoices automatically. And they've also outsourced the AP processing to us, and we're providing that service on-site with some people there in their finance and accounting function, and a significant portion, about 3/4 of the people are offshore in our processing center. So the result with this client is that cycle time was reduced by about 3 days, and the staff was reduced by about 20%. And this is just the improvements from the front-end optimization, front-end scanning and data capture, and process efficiency improvements. Going forward, improvements are going to be focused on the workflow automation and so on. So with that, I would like to just present to you our AP capabilities. As a service provider, as you can see, we support the procure-to-pay function. We provide the invoice intake on the front end. We provide the invoice processing and T&E processing through ready to pay and payment stage. And we assist with payment process depending on what the payment process is, for example, check printing and so on. We provide the automation throughout the process. I mentioned front-end image capture and scanning and data capture and extraction and so on, but we also provide the workflow automation that handles the approval and exceptions, provides analytics, and makes it possible for a certain invoice, portion of invoices to be processed straight through. We also provide the AP support, the AP administrative services such as help desk or vendor inquiries, reporting, dashboards and analysis, reconciliation support and tools, as well as supplier services such as e-invoice enrollment or vendor maintenance. So with that, we're up on our time. I would like to just leave you with a few takeaways, and that and what we're recommending is take a look at your process and understand your AP process, assess the process and benchmark your AP workflow as much as you can, map the workflow. You'd be surprised what you will find when you map the entire workflow and look at exactly what is happening step by step. A phased implementation approach, such as what we're recommending here, centralized, digitize, optimize the process, and then add automation, seems to work for us with many clients. It is a modular approach. It fixes one problem at a time or one stage at a time, and gives you the time and the knowledge and the information to understand your systems fully and be able to think about what automation you may need without jumping into automation and then finding out that you either don't need it or it doesn't work as planned. And then consider your AP flexibility and customization options. You don't necessarily need to give up your ways of working and your processes in order to implement, let's say, improvements or automation. You could improve what you have step by step. So with that, that concludes our webcast today.
Thank you, Ted. Yes, that does conclude today's presentation. Thank you so much for joining us. We hope you found today's insights helpful and useful. As you advance accounts payable performance at your organization, please feel free to contact Ted directly with questions. We can have Ted and our subject matter experts in accounts payable follow up with you. Thank you, and have a great day.